Yo, what's good, everyone? Let me tell you what went down on SportsCenter today, because ESPN just dropped some massive news that's about to shake up the entire Lakers universe. I'm talking blockbuster-level stuff here, the kind of move that makes you stop everything you're doing and just stare at your screen. So grab your coffee, sit back, and let me walk you through exactly what happened on the show today, because this is the kind of insider information that changes everything we thought we knew about where the Lakers are heading this season. All right, so the main story that had everyone at SportsCenter absolutely buzzing was this potential Anthony Simons situation with the Lakers. Now, before you start thinking this is just another rumor mill spinning out of control, let me explain why this actually makes a ton of sense when you really break it down. The analysts on the show today were diving deep into the mechanics of how this trade could actually materialize, and honestly, the more they talked about it, the more it started to click for me why this could be the move that transforms the Lakers from a really good team into a legitimate championship contender. Hey, what's up, everyone? Real quick before we get into everything, that like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second, but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly, the biggest way to support this content. Every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. Here's the thing about Anthony Simons that SportsCenter was really emphasizing today. This dude can score, like legitimately put up numbers that make opposing coaches lose sleep at night. We're talking about a guy who's been putting up serious points for Portland, and now that the Trailblazers are in full-blown rebuild mode after the Damian Lillard departure, they're looking to move pieces that don't fit their timeline. Simons is exactly that kind of piece. He's too good to be wasting away on a rebuilding team, and Portland knows they can flip him for draft capital and salary cap flexibility that actually helps them build for the future. It's one of those rare situations where both teams benefit massively, and that's when you know you've got the foundation for a real deal. The SportsCenter crew was breaking down the Lakers' current situation too, and this is where it gets really interesting. They showed how LA just came off this 5-day rest period between games, right? They're about to face Utah again, and the timing of this potential move couldn't be more perfect. The Lakers have been rolling, sitting at 11-4, playing some of their best basketball in years, even with guys going in and out of the lineup. But here's what the analysts were really getting at, and this is what I found fascinating. The Lakers aren't complete yet. They're close, man. They're so close, but they're missing that one or two pieces that take them from pretty good to absolutely unstoppable. What I loved about the SportsCenter discussion today was how they weren't just throwing out hot takes for clicks. They were really analyzing the roster construction, talking about how the Lakers have been overly cautious with injuries this season, which you can do when you're 11-4 instead of 4-11, right? It's a totally different conversation. They mentioned how LeBron just came back from dealing with his stuff, Gabe Vincent's been in and out, even Luka got banged up in that first Utah matchup. Austin Reeves was dealing with that groin issue. The point is, having everyone healthy now creates this perfect window to evaluate what you actually have versus what you need. And this is where Anthony Simons enters the conversation in a major way. The experts on the show today were talking about how the Lakers desperately need that clear-cut starting-level wing player, someone who can give them that two-way presence on the perimeter. They mentioned names like Andrew Wiggins as the type of player they're looking for, but then they pivoted to Simons and started breaking down how his skill set could actually be even more valuable for what the Lakers are trying to do. This isn't just about adding another body to the rotation. This is about adding someone who can create his own shot, someone who can take pressure off LeBron and Luka, someone who can stretch the floor and keep defenses honest. The Portland situation is what really makes this whole thing feel real, though. SportsCenter went through the Trailblazers' rebuild strategy, and it's crystal clear they're looking to accumulate assets. Simons represents probably their most valuable trading chip right now. He's young enough to be attractive to contending teams, he's on a reasonable contract, and his scoring ability is legitimately elite. For the Blazers, moving him brings back draft picks they need for their rebuild and opens up playing time for their younger guys to develop. It's textbook rebuilding strategy. And when you've got a team like the Lakers who are in win-now mode with LeBron's championship window still open, that's when deals get done. What really got me thinking during today's show was when they started talking about the Lakers' upcoming schedule. They've got this insane stretch of winnable games coming up, like legitimately 12 games that they should be able to dominate if they're firing on all cylinders. The SportsCenter analysts were saying the Lakers could realistically go on an 8-10 game winning streak here, which would put them at like 21-4 or better, firmly in that top 3 conversation in the entire league. But here's the catch. You need the right pieces to actually capitalize on that kind of schedule. You can't just assume you're going to win those games because they look winnable on paper. You need the depth, you need the versatility, you need guys who can step up when the matchups get weird, or when someone has an off night. This is exactly why the Anthony Simons conversation matters so much. Adding him to this roster during this stretch would be absolutely perfect timing. Imagine having Simons coming off screen, getting open looks, putting pressure on opposing defenses in ways they're not prepared for. The spacing he creates, the attention he demands from defenders, that's the kind of thing that opens up everything else for guys like LeBron and Luka. The SportsCenter crew was really hammering home this point about how modern NBA offenses live and die by perimeter shooting and shot creation, and Simons gives you both at an extremely high level. They also talked about the Lakers' practice situation during this 5-day break, which I thought was a really smart angle that doesn't get discussed enough. JJ Redick has been way better about getting practice time in compared to the Darvin Ham era, where it felt like they just never practiced at all. Having everyone healthy now means you can actually run real practices, get guys comfortable with different lineup combinations, figure out what works and what doesn't in a controlled environment before you have to test it in real game. If the Simons trade happens soon, this is the perfect time to integrate him into the system. You've got practice time, you've got a manageable schedule coming up, and you've got a team that's already playing well and just needs that extra piece to take it to the next level. One thing the analysts kept coming back to was roster flexibility, and how the Lakers have positioned themselves really well in that regard. They've got this group of 7 or 8 core guys that you absolutely keep no matter what, but beyond that, everyone else becomes potentially expendable if the right move comes along. That's smart team building, especially when you're in championship or bust mode like the Lakers are. You're not making moves just to make moves, but when a guy like Anthony Simons becomes available and the fit makes sense both on the court and financially, that's when you pull the trigger. The SportsCenter breakdown today also touched on defensive versatility, which is huge for the Lakers' championship aspirations. They need guys who can switch, who can guard multiple positions, who can hold up in playoff basketball when the game slows down and every possession matters. Simons isn't just a one-dimensional scorer. He's developed into a solid defender who can hold his own on that end. Combined with what the Lakers already have with guys who can provide that defensive intensity, adding Simons creates this really balanced roster where you're not sacrificing defense for offense or vice versa. What I found most compelling about today's discussion was the urgency behind it all. This isn't a maybe in the future kind of conversation. The Lakers are good right now. They're healthy right now. And they've got this incredible window of opportunity right now to make noise in the Western Conference. The analysts were saying, if you're Rob Pelinka and you're watching tape of this team, you've got to be thinking about what that final piece looks like. Simons checks so many boxes. He's the right age, he's got the skill set, he's available, and the team that has him is actively looking to move him. Everything lines up. They wrapped up the segment by talking about how this move would position the Lakers for the rest of the season and into the playoffs. You're looking at a team that already matches up well with the top teams in the West, already has the defensive identity you need to win in the playoffs, and already has the veteran leadership and championship experience. Add Simons to that mix, and suddenly you're talking about a roster that can genuinely compete with anyone. You've got scoring from multiple levels, you've got playmaking, you've got defense, you've got depth. That's championship DNA right there. Listen, after watching today's SportsCenter and hearing them break all this down, I'm convinced this Anthony Simons situation is way more real than people think. The Lakers need exactly what he provides, Portland needs exactly what the Lakers can offer in return, and the timing couldn't be better with where both franchises are at in their respective timeline. This is the kind of move that, when it happens, you look back at the end of the season and say, that was the moment everything changed. Stay tuned, because something's definitely brewing here. And if I were a Lakers fan, I'd be getting very, very excited about what the next few weeks could bring. This could legitimately be the move that puts them over the top. All right, stop everything you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you is going to completely flip your perspective on where the Lakers are heading this season, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this could be the move that defines their entire championship push. I'm not talking about some surface-level trade rumor or clickbait speculation that gets thrown around on social media every other day. This is the real deal. Insider information that's being discussed in actual NBA front offices as we speak. And it involves a reunion that could be the missing piece to bring championship number 18 back to Los Angeles. This isn't just about basketball moves on a spreadsheet or salary matching in a trade machine. This is about family coming home, about unfinished business, about a player who bled purple and gold once before and might just be ready to do it again when it matters most. Look, before we dive deep into this explosive story, if you're vibing with this Insider Lakers coverage and want to stay ahead of the curve on every development, do me a solid and smash that like button right now. So here's how this whole thing started for me, and I've got to set the scene properly, because the way I found out about this was absolutely wild and completely changed how I'm viewing this Lakers season. I was at the gym last night, grinding through my cardio session on the treadmill. You know that point where you're about 20 minutes in and your legs are burning, but you're in the zone, just trying to push through it after a long, exhausting day at work where everything seemed to go wrong. The TV mounted in front of me was showing SportsCenter on ESPN like it usually does, and I had my headphones in listening to music, so I wasn't really paying attention to what was on the screen at all, just using it as a focal point while I zoned out and focused on my breathing. But then, something caught my eye that made me do a double take. The graphics flashed across the screen showing Kyle Kuzma in a Lakers jersey. And I'm talking about new graphics, not old footage from his first stint with the team, and I immediately ripped my headphones out mid-song and reached up to turn up the volume because I knew this had to be something significant, something that could legitimately change the entire trajectory of this Lakers season. The entire SportsCenter crew was engaged in this really compelling and in-depth discussion about how the Lakers' current 5-day break between games represents a crucial opportunity for the organization to evaluate their roster construction and potentially make moves before the February trade deadline that could vault them into championship favorite status. The analysts were breaking down with incredible detail and insider knowledge how the Lakers currently have a fully healthy roster for the first time all season. Knock on wood, and crossing our fingers it stays that way. And this gives them valuable time to practice different lineup combinations, work on defensive schemes and rotations, and figure out what pieces they might still need to add to truly compete with the elite teams in both conferences come playoff time. The panel emphasized repeatedly, and I mean they kept coming back to this point throughout the entire segment, that while the Lakers have been genuinely excellent so far this season at an impressive 11-4 record, which has them sitting comfortably as one of the top seeds in the Western Conference alongside teams like Denver and Oklahoma City, they still need a couple quality moves to truly become championship favorites that everyone fears come playoff time. The crew discussed extensively how, even as currently constructed with LeBron James still playing at an elite level despite being in his 21st season, Luka Doncic establishing himself as a legitimate superstar who can take over games, and their solid supporting cast that's been exceeding expectation. Nobody should be shocked if the Lakers won the NBA championship because they absolutely have the talent, veteran leadership, and coaching necessary to get it done. But here's the thing, and this is where the conversation got really interesting, and had me leaning closer to the TV screen. If they could add a clear-cut starting-level wing player who can defend multiple positions and a secondary wing defender who provides depth and versatility, they would immediately become the overwhelming favorites in most experts' eyes and in Vegas betting markets. We're not talking about marginal improvement here. We're talking about the kind of move that makes you pencil the Lakers into the final before the playoffs even start. Now let me take you deeper into what the analysts were really getting at here, because this isn't just about adding bodies or filling roster spots on the end of the bench. The Lakers have been through an absolute gauntlet early in this season, with injuries to key rotation players, dealing with illnesses that swept through the locker room, and managing the minutes of their older players carefully. And the fact that they're sitting at 11-4 despite all that adversity speaks volumes about the resilience of this team and the outstanding coaching job J.J. Redick has done in his first year as head coach. The SportsCenter crew showed extensive clips of games where the Lakers literally had only 5 healthy rotation players and had to fill out the rest of the roster with G League call-ups on two-way contracts. Players who had never experienced NBA-level competition before suddenly being thrown into the fire against elite teams with playoff aspirations. The fact that they not only survived but actually thrived during that brutal stretch is genuinely remarkable and shows the culture Redick has built. The analysts went deep into the numbers, pulling up advanced statistics that showed how the Lakers have actually outperformed expectations in almost every meaningful category. Their defensive rating has improved significantly from last season. Their offensive efficiency in clutch situations ranks in the top 5 league-wide. And perhaps most impressively, their net rating in games decided by 5 points or less suggests they know how to win close games, which is absolutely crucial come playoff time when every possession matters. This isn't just a hot start that will cool off. There are real, tangible reasons to believe this Lakers team has something special brewing. But now, let's discuss in comprehensive detail the Kyle Kuzma reunion speculation that makes so much sense from multiple perspectives. And I'm telling you, the more you think about this and really analyze it from every angle, the more logical it becomes for everyone involved in this potential transaction. Currently circulating throughout NBA front offices, and I'm hearing this from multiple sources who are plugged into these discussions and have their ears to the ground, are substantive conversations about the possible departure of Kyle Kuzma from the Washington Wizards. And when you look at the Wizards' current situation and future direction, it becomes crystal clear why trading him makes perfect sense for their long-term rebuild strategy. The Wizards are deeply entrenched in a long-term reconstruction process after years of mediocrity, first-round playoff exits, and roster decisions that didn't pan out the way they hoped. They're committed to building around their young core and accumulating draft assets for the future. And Kyle Kuzma, as a proven veteran with legitimate championship experience from his time with the Lakers, represents a valuable asset for contending teams seeking to add a versatile scorer who can contribute immediately without needing months to adjust to a new system or learn how to play winning basketball. For the Lakers specifically, and I cannot stress this enough because it's such an important point that cannot be overlooked, bringing back Kyle Kuzma would be absolutely poetic. We're talking full-circle, storybook-type stuff that would have Lakers fans feeling all the emotions. He was an integral part of that 2020 championship team that won the title in the bubble during one of the most challenging circumstances in NBA history, dealing with a pandemic, social justice issues, and being away from their families for months. Kuzma proved during that run that he could make big plays in big moments, hitting clutch shots, playing tough defense, and accepting whatever role the team needed him to fill on any given night. And here's what really mattered. Kuzma knows exactly what it takes to win at the highest level alongside LeBron James, understanding all the nuances of playing off the ball when LeBron has it, making the right cuts at the right times, spacing the floor properly to maximize driving lanes, and picking his spots to be aggressive without disrupting the offensive flow. That familiarity factor cannot be overstated enough. Kuzma wouldn't need 3 months to figure out how to play with LeBron, because they've already won a championship together and have that established chemistry and trust that you simply cannot manufacture overnight, no matter how many practices you have. Kuzma averaged over 22 points per game last season, while also contributing nearly 7 rebounds and 4 assists per game, demonstrating his ability to impact the game in multiple facets, beyond just scoring buckets. The SportsCenter panel showed extensive highlight packages of his offensive versatility, displaying games where he absolutely went off for 30-plus points, showcasing his ability to attack closeouts with quick first steps, pull up from mid-range with a smooth stroke, knock down threes consistently from the corners and wings, and finish through contact at the rim with improved strength and body control. His three-point shooting has improved dramatically since his first Lakers stint. He shot over 35% from beyond the arc last season on solid volume, making him a legitimate threat that defenses absolutely have to respect and close out hard on, which creates more driving lanes and easier looks for everyone else on the court. The analysts discussed how adding Kuzma would give the Lakers tremendous flexibility in their rotation and lineup combinations that head coach J.J. Redick could utilize in different matchups and situations. And this versatility is what makes championship teams dangerous. So that was the comprehensive breakdown of how Kyle Kuzma could return home to the Lakers and provide exactly what they need to become legitimate championship favorites. Okay, so listen, I need to tell you about something absolutely wild that went down yesterday evening that's going to completely blow your mind and make you rethink everything about what the Los Angeles Lakers are planning for the rest of this season and how they're positioning themselves for a deep playoff run. I was at the grocery store doing my weekly shopping, just pushing my cart down the aisles, trying to remember what I needed to buy and checking items off my list, when I heard these two guys in Lakers jerseys having this incredibly animated conversation in the cereal aisle about some breaking trade news they'd just seen on SportsCenter that had them absolutely fired up. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop or anything, but they were talking so loud with such excitement and enthusiasm that I couldn't help but overhear them discussing Brandon Ingram and a potential return to Los Angeles. And I immediately abandoned my shopping cart right there in the middle of the aisle and pulled out my phone to see what they were talking about, because I knew this had to be something significant. Real quick before we dive deep into this breaking news, if you're loving this Insider Lakers coverage and want more daily content, hit that like button to help us keep bringing you everything purple and gold. So I rushed through the rest of my shopping as fast as humanly possible, basically speed walking through every aisle and throwing items in my cart without even checking prices, threw everything in my car, and drove straight home so I could turn on ESPN and catch the full SportsCenter breakdown of what was developing in real time. When I finally got the broadcast on my TV after fumbling with the remote, the entire panel was in the middle of this absolutely fascinating and detailed discussion about the Lakers' current 5-day break between games and how the front office might be using this time to not just rest and practice, but also to strategically evaluate potential roster moves that could transform this team from Western Conference contender to legitimate championship favorite with the pieces to compete with anyone. The analysts were breaking down how the Lakers are coming off that huge impressive win against Utah in LeBron's highly anticipated season debut, where he looked absolutely phenomenal, and now they have this crucial 5-day window before taking on the Jazz again in what will be another important test. The SportsCenter crew emphasized how important this 5-day break really is for the Lakers organization to kind of recalibrate and get everything back in proper order after such a chaotic start to the season with injuries and lineup changes. The panel kept stressing that the Lakers have had such a great start despite all the adversity they've faced, currently sitting at an impressive 11-4 record, which has them as one of the top teams in the entire Western Conference, and they've been one of the better teams in the league even without LeBron for extended stretches this year, with several players constantly in and out of the lineup, dealing with various injuries and illnesses. The analysts showed extensive clips of games where the Lakers literally had like only 5 active players on the roster, and then had to fill out the rest of the rotation with a bunch of G League call-ups and two-way contract players, which is absolutely insane when you think about trying to compete at the NBA level with that kind of depleted roster. The crew discussed in great detail how the Lakers have kind of had their injury woes, with guys constantly in and out of the lineup, and part of it is just that the Lakers front office and medical staff have been overly cautious with their stars to protect them for the long, grueling season ahead. But it also genuinely helps when you're able to still win games consistently, even with key players out, because it's really hard to be overly cautious and rest guys when you're struggling at 4-11 and desperately need win. But when you're sitting pretty at 11-4, you can afford to take your time bringing guys back healthy and not rush anyone back prematurely, which could lead to more serious injuries. The panel discussed how, as of right now, the Lakers have a fully healthy roster for the first time all season, knock on wood, and hopefully it stays that way for the foreseeable future. Obviously, guys are going to miss games here and there over the course of an 82-game season, which is completely fine and expected, but just to have everyone available and practicing together is invaluable. The analysts emphasized this gives the Lakers time to kind of get some treatment for players who are banged up, let guys mend their bodies after playing so many games in such a compressed schedule, and just catch their breath a little bit. The crew broke down how the Lakers have actually played more games than most of the top teams in the Western Conference, having played 2 more games than several of their main competitors. So they've had a lot of games kind of crammed together that now this 5-day break helps alleviate. The panel stressed this break is crucial because the Lakers are going to have an extensive run of games through November and then into December to close out the calendar year. So getting this rest now is perfect timing. But now, let's transition to the absolutely explosive Brandon Ingram trade speculation that has the entire basketball world buzzing with excitement and anticipation. Currently, there are substantive discussions happening around the league about the possible departure of Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans, and this represents a potential homecoming story that would be absolutely incredible and capture the imagination of Lakers fans everywhere. The primary motivation driving these trade rumors is the complete lack of progress on a contract extension agreement between Brandon Ingram and the Pelicans front office, despite months of negotiations and back-and-forth discussions. Brandon Ingram is entering a critical contract situation where New Orleans faces a franchise-defining decision that will impact their future for years to come. Either extend him now to a massive long-term deal potentially worth over $200 million, or risk losing him as an unrestricted free agent without receiving any assets in return, which would be organizational malpractice of the highest order. The Pelicans may not want to take that substantial risk of losing Brandon Ingram for absolutely nothing in free agency, so trading him now while his value remains high makes strategic sense from a roster management perspective. Additionally, the New Orleans organization may be seeking players who fit better schematically alongside franchise cornerstone Zion Williamson, and who can bring more consistency and reliability to the roster on both ends of the floor. For the Los Angeles Lakers specifically, acquiring Brandon Ingram would represent an absolutely incredible full-circle moment, bringing back a former number 2 overall pick who originally developed in LA before being traded in the Anthony Davis deal. The SportsCenter panel kept emphasizing that Ingram at 6'8", with his smooth shooting stroke, elite scoring ability from all 3 levels, and improved playmaking would be absolutely perfect alongside LeBron James and Luka Doncic in the Lakers system. Brandon Ingram averaged over 24 points per game last season with efficient shooting percentages across the board, and his length would be a massive defensive asset that would give the Lakers another versatile wing defender. The analysts discussed extensively how this 5-day break gives the Lakers valuable time to practice different lineup combinations and evaluate what they really need to become true championship contenders. They emphasized the Lakers need a clear-cut starting level 3, even if it's someone like Andrew Wiggins, and ideally a secondary wing player like a Matisse Thybulle or Haywood Highsmith type, who can defend multiple positions and provide depth. But Brandon Ingram would be a significant upgrade over any of those options, giving the Lakers a legitimate third star who can create his own shot and take pressure off LeBron and Luka. The crew broke down potential trade packages extensively, discussing how the Lakers have expiring contracts like Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, and others that could be packaged along with draft picks to make salaries match in any deal. They emphasized that Rob Pelinka has been known to pull off surprising trades throughout his tenure as general manager, and this would certainly qualify as a blockbuster that changes the entire Western Conference playoff picture and makes the Lakers immediate favorites. The panel also discussed how J.J. Redick could utilize this 5-day break to experiment with different starting lineups and rotation. They emphasized the importance of not starting Rui Hachimura at the 3 despite his shooting ability, because the Lakers need more defensive versatility in the starting unit. The analysts suggested trying Marcus Smart or Jared Vanderbilt or even Jake LaRavia at that spot to provide better perimeter defense alongside Luka Doncic. The crew discussed how this evaluation period is crucial because the Lakers need to figure out their identity before the trade deadline. They emphasized that while the Lakers are good enough to win a championship as currently constructed, adding a player of Brandon Ingram's caliber would make them overwhelming favorites and give them the star power to match up with any team in a 7-game series. So that was the comprehensive Sports Center breakdown of how Brandon Ingram could return to the Lakers and transform their championship aspirations during this crucial 5-day evaluation period that could define their entire season. Yo, what's good? So I just caught Sports Center on ESPN, and the entire panel was absolutely going off about multiple massive stories involving the Los Angeles Lakers that have fans simultaneously excited and intrigued about what could be brewing in LA. There's serious buzz and speculation emerging that the Lakers could potentially be working on acquiring both Ja Morant from the Memphis Grizzlies and Donte DiVincenzo from the Minnesota Timberwolves in what would be franchise-altering moves that completely transform the Lakers' championship trajectory. But there's also major discussion about Memphis potentially making Jaren Jackson Jr. available if they decide to blow everything up, and the Sports Center crew wanted to break down every single angle of these interconnected scenarios. Let's start with the Ja Morant situation, because this is genuinely seismic and goes much deeper than most casual fans realize. The Memphis Grizzlies organization is facing a critical decision point. There's been a tremendous amount of discussion and reporting about them potentially trading Ja Morant after the franchise suspended him, and he made those very interesting and revealing comments criticizing the coaching staff publicly. The Sports Center panel emphasized that they genuinely love watching Ja Morant as a basketball player. He's one of the most electrifying and explosive talents in the entire league. But the harsh reality is that Morant just cannot seem to get out of his own way, according to the analysts. He's constantly doing things that create distractions, put him in negative situations and bad lighting, and detract from his otherworldly basketball talent. It's genuinely unfortunate for such a generational athletic talent to be consistently surrounded by controversy. And listen, before we continue breaking down what this means for the Lakers moving forward, if you're enjoying this breakdown and want to see more content like this, just hit that like button real quick. It takes 1 second, but it tells me you want more of these deep dives into everything Lakers. Those likes genuinely help push this content to more fans in the community, so smash that like button right now. Alright, now let's get back into it. But the panel thinks at some point, Morant is absolutely going to get traded from Memphis. It's not a matter of if anymore, but when. Most people around the league never really thought Morant was going to finish his entire career in Memphis anyway. But the Sports Center crew thinks he probably gets moved sooner rather than later, given how the situation has deteriorated. The question becomes, will Memphis trade him this season around the February trade deadline? Or will they wait until the off-season? The analysts think it would make significantly more sense for the Grizzlies to just get through this season and then trade Morant in the off-season when you have way more potential suitors and flexibility. There are more teams that have available cap space and money to work with. You'd be able to structure more complex multi-team trades with multiple moving pieces, and you'd have considerably more time to properly flush out the best possible return for a player of Morant's caliber and contract. Now here's where it gets absolutely fascinating for the Lakers, according to the Sports Center breakdown. The relationship between Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies organization has degenerated and deteriorated profoundly and irreversibly, primarily following major changes in the head coaching position and the implementation of a completely new basketball philosophy that has dramatically reduced Morant's protagonist role and offensive freedom. Morant has been accustomed to being the absolute emotional and creative center of the Memphis franchise for his entire professional career. The heartbeat, the identity, the player, everything flows through. But the new coaching regime wants something fundamentally different. More structure, more discipline, more collective basketball where no single player dominates possessions. The panel emphasized that Morant has begun to feel genuinely limited, underutilized, and completely disconnected from Memphis's current organizational project and vision. His decision to eventually leave Memphis is being motivated by his burning desire to find a competitive environment where his unique identity as an explosive, aggressive, fearless competitor is not just tolerated, but actively celebrated and channeled toward winning championships immediately. And that's where the Los Angeles Lakers enter the picture as the absolutely perfect destination. Now let's talk about Donte DiVincenzo's situation with Minnesota, because this is equally compelling for the Lakers. DiVincenzo's role with the Timberwolves has steadily begun losing prominence and importance within their rotation. His minutes have become wildly irregular and inconsistent from game to game, and he's been given very little offensive freedom or creative responsibility. The SportsCenter crew emphasized that DiVincenzo is a player with exceptionally high basketball IQ and tactical understanding, and he genuinely feels like he can contribute significantly more than his current limited role allows him to showcase. DiVincenzo's motivation for seeking a change is rooted in finding an offensive system where his remarkable versatility, elite perimeter defense, constant off-ball movement, and winning intangibles can make a genuine difference in crucial, high-stakes playoff games. He's not content being a spot-up shooter standing in the corner. He wants to be part of a system that maximizes all his skills and allows him to impact winning at the highest level. And this is where connecting both Ja Morant and Donte DiVincenzo to the Los Angeles Lakers becomes absolutely undeniable, according to the SportsCenter analysis. The Lakers offer something that very few franchises in professional sports can provide: a massive competitive stage, an enormous media spotlight, and an emotionally charged environment where great players have traditionally redefined and elevated their careers to legendary status. This is the franchise of Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and LeBron James. The Lakers' organizational identity fundamentally demands explosive energy, relentless competitive intensity, and players who are genuinely capable of taking over and deciding games in crucial moments. Those are qualities that both Ja Morant and Donte DiVincenzo possess in abundance. The panel emphasized that if Morant and DiVincenzo join the Lakers, they wouldn't be arriving as secondary role players or complementary pieces. They would be coming to Los Angeles to actively reignite and reestablish a culture of championship-level protagonism, breakneck offensive pace, physical defensive intensity, and that trademark Lakers swagger and confidence. Playing alongside already established stars like Anthony Davis, and potentially alongside the developing young core, both Morant and DiVincenzo would have defined roles that maximize their unique strengths. Imagine Ja Morant running pick-and-roll actions with Anthony Davis, attacking in transition with his explosive first step, creating easy opportunities for shooters spotted around the perimeter. DiVincenzo would provide that gritty defensive toughness, constant movement without the ball, timely three-point shooting, and veteran championship experience that championship teams absolutely require. The Lakers would transform overnight from a team trying to figure out their identity into a legitimate title contender with multiple dynamic playmakers. But now, the SportsCenter crew wanted to dive deep into another fascinating angle. What happens if Memphis decides that trading Ja Morant is just the first domino to fall? If the Grizzlies move Morant and decide to completely blow everything up and start a full organizational rebuild, do they open up the entire roster and make everyone available for the right price? The analysts think it will really depend significantly on what type of return Memphis gets for Morant. If the Grizzlies can acquire an established player who makes sense and allows them to continue competing at a high level, then maybe they don't sell off everything. But if Memphis gets back primarily young prospects and a massive haul of future draft picks, they might look at their situation and decide, hey, let's completely tear this down and start fresh with a clean slate. Jaders, and if that scenario actually happens according to the panel, if the Lakers are smart, they should absolutely be inquiring about Jaren Jackson Jr. in that situation. Jackson makes an enormous amount of sense for the Lakers' roster construction and timeline. He's a player the SportsCenter crew would genuinely love to see in purple and gold. Jackson was actually the guy that many Lakers fans were desperately hoping wouldn't sign a contract extension with Memphis so that LA could potentially pursue him as a free agent this coming offseason. The only significant issue and concern with Jaren Jackson Jr. is his current contract situation. He just signed a massive new extension where he's making basically $50 million per year with a player option at the end. But Jackson is young enough at only 26 years old that when his contract eventually expires, he'll only be 31 when he enters unrestricted free agency. So there's still plenty of prime years remaining for him to continue growing and developing as an elite two-way player. The problem, according to the analyst, is that Jackson is getting paid like someone who should be your franchise's first or second offensive option, and the panel just doesn't think he's truly at that level as a primary scorer. But if Jackson is your third or fourth offensive option on a championship-caliber team, the SportsCenter crew thinks you'd be a legitimately excellent basketball team, possibly even the absolute best team in the entire league, with that kind of balanced roster construction. The concern is purely about the contract value versus production. But Jackson is legitimately good. He's just not $50 million per year good, according to the panel's assessment. He won Defensive Player of the Year. He's an elite rim protector and versatile defender who can guard multiple positions. The analysts think that alongside a potential core of Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, and the young developing talent, Jackson would make all the sense in the world. They would slot Jackson in at the power forward position. If LeBron James eventually departs LA, either through retirement or free agents, Jackson could seamlessly become your starting four alongside Anthony Davis at center. Ideally, you'd have Jackson at the 4 next to Davis at the 5, and you'd have Davis's incredible versatility and ability to defend on the perimeter, combined with Jackson's elite rim protection and defensive versatility. Getting both of those front-court players with their combined athleticism, length, and defensive prowess alongside playmakers would create an absolutely dominant two-way team. Jaren Jackson Jr. is absolutely a player the SportsCenter crew would love to see the Lakers aggressively pursue in trade discussion. Now, the panel acknowledges that maybe someone like Lauri Markkanen might be a more natural offensive fit, given his shooting and spacing, but they think Jackson is a player who could slot in seamlessly, buy into his role, and play winning basketball without needing to be a primary option. If Jackson is your third scoring option behind Davis and Reeves, the analysts think the Lakers would be in phenomenal shape competitively. Jackson could realistically give you 17 to 20 points per game pretty consistently, basically maintaining his career averages. He's not a great rebounder for his size, which is a minor concern, but defensively, he's absolutely fantastic and one of the best defenders in all of basketball. That's why he won Defensive Player of the Year. He's not a guy you can count on to give you 30 points every single night, but he'll have those explosive offensive games periodically. He's basically a consistent 20 points per game scorer who's had multiple seasons averaging 22 points. But as a third option, the SportsCenter crew could absolutely see Jackson giving you 17-18 points with 5 rebounds, a couple blocks, and 4-5 combined steals and blocks per game. That's elite two-way production. You're talking about a player who's 6'11", with a 7.4 to 7.5 wingspan, incredibly athletic, can be a legitimate lob threat in pick and roll. But what the panel really loves is not just his elite individual defensive ability, but his defensive versatility for what the Lakers need both now and moving forward into the future. Jackson is only 26 years old, so he fits the timeline absolutely perfectly with Austin Reeves, also 26, Anthony Davis, still in his prime, and the young developing core. Now, you'd have all these players in their mid-20s that you could potentially keep together for the next 5 to 7 years and realistically compete for multiple championships with that sustained window. The significant problem, according to the SportsCenter analysis, is that you'd have an enormous amount of money committed to your starting five. You'd have Austin Reeves making major money. You'd have Anthony Davis on a max contract. Davis is probably going to get paid around $30–35 million when his extension kicks in. And then you'd have Jaren Jackson Jr. making $40–50 million annually. So you're looking at Reeves, Davis, and Jackson all making around $40 million each, which under the new collective bargaining agreement rule makes roster construction and depth building incredibly challenging and restrictive. It makes things genuinely tough from a salary cap management perspective. But again, as the panel emphasized, if you're winning championships, who really cares about luxury tax penalties? If you're winning multiple championships, it's a you've got to pay to play type of situation where you accept the financial consequences of building a championship roster. It's just that if you don't win championships with that much money committed, you could end up completely stuck in roster purgatory, unable to make meaningful improvements. But when you're talking about a player of Jackson's caliber, for his career, he's averaging 18.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks per game. Those are legitimately elite two-way numbers. Looking at Jackson's current season through 7 games in 2025-26, he's playing 28, 3 minutes per game, and taking 12.1 field goal attempts, which is significantly down from recent years. He averaged 16.4 attempts the previous season and 17.6 the year before, so he's down almost 5 to 6 field goal attempts per game. But he's shooting a career-best 52.9% from the field overall, which is why his efficiency numbers look so good. His previous career high was 50.6%, so he's shooting about 2% better than ever before. From three-point range, Jackson is shooting 35% on 3, 7 attempts per game, which is slightly down from his usual 5 attempts, but right at his career average of 35%. The previous year, on 5.3 attempts, he shot 37.5%. And if Jackson could maintain that 37–38% three-point shooting for the Lakers, that would be absolutely fantastic for floor spacing. Where Jackson is really thriving this season is from two-point range. On 8.4 attempts, he's shooting an impressive 61%, which is why his overall field goal percentage is so elite. His effective field goal percentage sits at 58.2%, which is outstanding efficiency. Jackson has always been a quality free throw shooter throughout his career, currently shooting 80% on 4.3 attempts per game, with a career average just under 5 attempts at 79%. For the season, he's averaging 5.6 rebounds, 1.5 assists, a steal, 1.1 blocks, and 17.6 points per game. Solid all-around production. The SportsCenter panel emphasized they genuinely like Jackson as a potential Lakers target because he checks so many crucial boxes for what LA desperately needs. He provides that elite defensive versatility and defensive anchoring presence. He gives you legitimate rim protection that the Lakers have been missing. He provides positional coverage at both the 4 and the 5, which is incredibly valuable. The Lakers love to run small ball lineups, and you could throw Jackson out there at center in those configurations alongside Rui Hachimura at the 4. Have some combination of wings and guards, and suddenly you have lineup versatility that's nearly impossible to match up against defensively. You could also have Jackson at the 4, alongside Davis at the 5 in your standard starting lineup. Now you have that perfect balance, that defensive versatility, elite rim protection from both bigs, and the ability to switch everything on the perimeter. Davis can occasionally step out and defend on the perimeter using his size and length to disrupt, and Jackson can drop back and still protect the rim, defend in space, defend the pick and roll, defend on the perimeter. It gives you that elite two-man front-court dynamic pairing in Jackson and Davis that the analysts think could lead to championship success. The SportsCenter crew's only real problem and hesitation is that Jackson makes $40–50 million annually. They're just not fans of that contract value. They don't think he's worth that kind of money. If Jackson was making closer to $30 million per year, the panel would be significantly more excited and encouraged, and they'd be telling Lakers management, go do absolutely whatever you have to do to acquire this player immediately. The problem is, Jackson is making that massive salary, and when you factor in that Austin Reeves is making around $42 million, and Davis is making max money, you're looking at an enormous amount of salary committed to just 3 players. The analysts' concern is they don't think Jaren Jackson Jr. is truly a number 2 offensive option on a championship team. So even for people who might suggest just trade Austin Reeves and acquire Jackson, the SportsCenter crew doesn't like Jackson as your second-best player. Now, you could argue that the fit and pairing alongside Davis might work better than Reeves, and you'd have Jackson plus Davis plus the young core depending on what you get in return for Reeves. But the panel just doesn't know if that's the right strategic approach for sustained success. But Jackson is absolutely a player that if the Lakers can acquire him for a reasonable price, it would be genuinely hard to say no to that opportunity. It just depends on what his market value is, what the cost to acquire him in trade would be, all of those critical factors. If it's reasonable and doesn't gut the entire future, the analysts think you at least have to inquire and throw your hat in the ring to see what Memphis says. Worst case scenario, they demand something ridiculous like 5 first-round picks, and you just tell them to keep Jackson at that point and let that become someone else's problem. But if Memphis is genuinely trying to get off Jackson's contract, and they say something like, we just need 1 first-round pick to feel good about moving him, then absolutely you have to seriously consider it. The SportsCenter panel thinks if you're doing this deal, it probably makes more sense to wait until the offseason rather than forcing it at the trade deadline. You'd execute Austin Reeves' contract last in any trade scenario so you can maximize your available cap space flexibility. If Memphis is essentially salary dumping Jackson to clear their books and you're getting him for relatively free, except maybe including a young player like Dalton Knecht or Jared Vanderbilt, that becomes incredibly appealing. The analysts emphasized that Jaren Jackson Jr. would be genuinely great, especially as your 3rd or 4th scoring option. As your 2nd option, he's probably not quite good enough to win a championship, but as your 3rd option, it would be incredibly tough to say no to. If you could get him for just 2 first-round picks, that would be hard to turn down. Just imagine if you basically absorb most of his salary into your cap space. Maybe even facilitate a sign-and-trade with LeBron James if LeBron wanted to leave in free agency. If LeBron wants to stay, then you have him starting at the 3 in your closing lineup. You could run LeBron, Jackson, Davis alongside guards, and how could you possibly lose games with that kind of talent and balance? If everyone stays healthy, you'd probably be running through opponents on the path to a championship. But bringing this all back together, if the Lakers can somehow pull off acquiring both Ja Morant from Memphis and Donte DiVincenzo from Minnesota, while also potentially landing Jaren Jackson Jr. in a separate deal if Memphis blows everything up, the SportsCenter crew thinks LA would instantly transform into the most talented and dangerous team in the entire Western Conference. You'd have Morant's explosive playmaking and scoring, DiVincenzo's winning intangibles and defensive intensity, Jackson's elite two-way play, Davis's dominance, and the young core's development all coming together. Each player has their own distinct personal motivation for seeking this fresh start and new chapter, but they'd all be finding common purpose and meaning in the Lakers' championship culture and winning tradition. So that was the full Sports Center breakdown of the Lakers potentially working on something absolutely massive, with Ja Morant, DiVincenzo, and Jaren Jackson Jr. all potentially heading to LA in franchise-altering moves. Okay, so check this out. I was literally lying in bed last night at like 11:30 p.m. scrolling through Instagram before going to sleep. You know, just doing that thing we all do where you tell yourself, just 5 more minutes of social media. But it inevitably turns into an hour of mindlessly scrolling through posts and stories, when suddenly, out of absolutely nowhere, my phone started vibrating like crazy, with notification after notification after notification from ESPN, Bleacher Report, the Idaho Athletic, Yahoo Sports, and like 10 different group chats with my basketball friends, all going absolutely nuts about the exact same story that was breaking in real time. At first, I honestly thought maybe my phone was legitimately glitching or malfunctioning or something, because the notifications were coming in so incredibly fast and furiously that I couldn't even read them properly or process what they were saying. But then I actually stopped and opened one of the notifications carefully and saw it was about the Los Angeles Lakers and some potentially massive franchise-altering roster developments and trade rumors that absolutely nobody saw coming or anticipated. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump into this massive Lakers news, I just want to ask you for a quick favor that would mean the world to me. If you could just take 1 second right now and hit that like button, it would be incredibly important to me and helps this channel grow so much. I know it seems like a small thing, but those likes genuinely make a huge difference in getting this content out to more Lakers fans who need to stay updated on everything happening with this team. So seriously, just tap that like button real quick. It literally takes 1 second and it helps me out more than you know. I immediately shot up in bed wide awake with adrenaline pumping because I absolutely cannot ignore Lakers news, no matter how tired I am or how late it is at night. So I grabbed my laptop from my desk, turned on my television, pulled up Sports Center on ESPN because I desperately needed to see and hear what the entire expert panel was saying and analyzing about this developing situation. And let me tell you, when that broadcast finally came on the screen, after what felt like forever, the entire crew assembled in the ESPN studio was engaged in this absolutely heated and animated debate and discussion about multiple interconnected storylines involving the Lakers that have genuinely serious implications and consequences for their championship hopes and aspirations this season. The analysts were going back and forth with so much genuine passion and intensity and conviction that you could literally feel the energy radiating through the television screen into my bedroom. And it was crystal clear they understood they were discussing something that could genuinely define and determine whether the Lakers make a deep, sustained playoff run or flame out in disappointing fashion yet again like they have in recent years. The way they were meticulously breaking down game film frame by frame, carefully analyzing rotations and lineup combinations, and discussing potential roster moves and trade scenarios had me completely locked in and focused for the next 2 solid hours straight, without even realizing how much time had actually passed, or that it was now past 1:30 a.m. Now here's where things get absolutely wild and fascinating, and I need to tell you comprehensively about what the Sports Center crew was emphasizing and stressing as their main central point of discussion that dominated the entire segment. Last night, everyone watching the game got to see the Los Angeles Lakers start a lineup of Austin Reeves at the point guard position, Luka Doncic at the shooting guard spot, Rui Hachimura at the small forward position, LeBron James at the power forward spot, and DeAndre Ayton anchoring the middle at center. And the panel was absolutely unanimous in their professional assessment that this starting unit was genuinely getting ran out of the building and dominated early in the game before the coaching staff made necessary adjustments and substitutions. The defensive performance was absolutely atrocious and embarrassing according to the detailed film breakdown that they showed with multiple clips. and the analysts kept repeatedly coming back to one specific player who they think represents the biggest fundamental problem with this starting lineup construction and roster-building philosophy. The Sports Center crew emphasized repeatedly, and I need to make this crystal clear because it's genuinely important for understanding their perspective. They absolutely love Rui Hachimura as a talented player and respect his offensive game and shooting ability tremendously, but they were completely adamant and insistent that you simply cannot start him in that critical small forward position alongside LeBron James and Luka Doncic if you genuinely want to compete for an NBA championship at the highest level. You just can't do it according to their expert professional analysis and years of basketball knowledge. Rui Hachimura absolutely has to come off the bench and embrace a sixth-man role where he can provide instant scoring punch and offensive firepower when he enters games, according to the panel. The analysts were genuinely hoping and openly speculating that maybe this questionable starting lineup decision was just a temporary familiarity thing where head coach J.J. Redick strategically wanted to ease LeBron James back into game action in his first game returning from injury by surrounding him with players he's comfortable with and has built substantial chemistry with over extended time playing together. They discussed extensively and in great detail how LeBron has played extensively with Luka Doncic for a while now and knows instinctively how to play off him and maximize their combined talents. He's played literally hundreds of games with Austin Reeves, and they have tremendous natural chemistry, where they know each other's tendencies, and he's played well alongside Rui Hachimura, who understands how to play well off of LeBron's unique strengths and understands exactly when to cut hard to the basket and when to spot up for three-pointers when LeBron has the ball in his hands and is attacking. So the thinking and logic was, maybe J.J. Redick just wanted to give LeBron that immediate familiarity and comfort level in his first game back, rather than throwing him into a completely new and unfamiliar lineup dynamic that might take time to develop chemistry and understanding. If that's genuinely the case and the real reasoning behind this controversial decision, the panel said emphatically they're fine with it and have absolutely no problems or issues with that approach in the short term for a few games. But the Sports Center analysts were very clear and direct about establishing firm boundaries here. Even if that familiarity explanation is completely accurate and true, they don't want to see this particular starting lineup continue for more than the next 2 games, or maybe the first small handful of games at absolute most, before making necessary changes. The crew emphasized strongly they don't want to overreact prematurely or get too overly critical of J.J. Redick or the Lakers' rotation decisions and lineup construction immediately without giving adequate time and patience for things to develop naturally. You're naturally going to be experimenting with different combinations and permutations. You're going to be trying different things to see what works best. And you're going to be trying to figure things out through trial and error and learning experience. That's just fundamentally how it works in the NBA, especially this early in the season when you've just gotten everybody back healthy and available after dealing with various injuries. The panel specifically noted that even Jared Vanderbilt, who's known for his elite defensive versatility, had a surprising DNP, did not play designation, which was genuinely surprising and confusing given his defensive abilities and how much the Lakers desperately need perimeter defense. The analysts said they're genuinely okay with being patient and just kind of letting things unfold naturally over the next several games before making definitive harsh judgments about J.J. Redick's coaching decisions. But here's where they drew a hard, unmovable line in the sand that they wouldn't compromise on. If Rui Hachimura is going to end up being the main guy and permanent fixture in that starting small forward spot long-term for the rest of the season, the Lakers absolutely have to trade him without hesitation. It's genuinely that simple and straightforward, according to the panel's firm assessment. They brought up something critically important that's not just subjective opinion, but verifiable documented fact that you can research and confirm through multiple sources. Rui Hachimura has historically in the past kind of checked out mentally and emotionally when he gets benched and demoted, taking it extremely personally and not handling that demotion well from a psychological or performance standpoint whatsoever. Now that previous problematic behavior occurred specifically under former head coach Darvin Ham's leadership and coaching style. And J.J. Redick is obviously a completely different coach with a totally different communication style and different relationship-building approach with players. It's also a fundamentally different team with different veteran leaders and a completely different organizational culture. The panel acknowledged fairly that Rui Hachimura himself has even publicly stated in interviews that he's okay coming off the bench, and that for him personally, it's just about the total minutes he accumulates and whether he's closing games in crucial fourth-quarter situations. The problem with that perspective, according to the Sports Center crew, is that usually and typically, your starters are the exact players you're going to close with in tight competitive games because they've built chemistry playing together. But now, let's transition to the absolutely explosive Klay Thompson trade speculation that could genuinely solve all these problems simultaneously. Currently circulating around NBA circles and being discussed in front offices are genuine substantive rumors about the possible departure of future Hall of Famer Klay Thompson from the Dallas Mavericks, with the organization actively and aggressively exploring various trade options after what's been a genuinely disappointing and concerning start to the 2025-26 season that's fallen well below expectation. Klay Thompson was also recently moved to the bench and removed from the starting lineup by head coach Jason Kidd, which signals serious organizational concerns about his fit and performance. The motivations behind these persistent Klay Thompson trade rumors include his genuinely poor initial performance this season. The strategic move to the bench occurred after a legitimately weak start, where his shooting percentages were down. And although Klay Thompson has shown some improvement recently over the last several games, the frustrating lack of consistency worries Dallas executives. There's also the significant salary consideration that factors heavily, with an annual salary of $16.7 million guaranteed money and performance output below expectations for a veteran of his caliber. The Mavericks are seriously evaluating whether Klay Thompson is worth the continued investment, especially considering their potential future timeline with developing rookie Cooper Flagg. The dismissal of general manager Nico Harrison shortly after the Anthony Davis trade has created widespread expectation that new leadership might want to reformulate the roster. Despite his irregular, inconsistent phase, there's still genuine interest from other franchises in Klay Thompson, primarily competitive teams seeking an experienced championship shooter, though his market value has declined. For the Lakers specifically, acquiring Klay Thompson would provide exactly what they desperately need: elite perimeter shooting, championship experience, defensive versatility. So that was the comprehensive Sports Center breakdown of the Lakers' crisis and how Klay Thompson could be the solution.